Hello Yankee Jazz fans and welcome to the latest edition of the Yankee Jazz podcast. This week we will be featuring an interview I did a few weeks back with Gareth Lockrane, who should have been one of our Manchester Jazz Festival artists. Sadly, of course, the festival had to be pulled this year, but we're looking forward to getting Gareth back up to the whiskey jar as soon as we can. For those of you who do not know Gareth, he is an incredible flautist, composer and also a brilliant educator, and it was a great pleasure to be chatting to him. He recorded some music specifically for us for the podcast today, and he also has pulled out some incredible big band recordings from his archive. We chat about his life in music, his education work and all sorts of things besides. So please sit back and enjoy the great chat with Gareth Lockrane. Hello Gareth and welcome to the Yankee Jazz podcast. How have you been keeping?
All good. Considering all the mess we're in, but it's all trying to stay active, trying to stay positive, despite all the obvious stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, just for those of our audience who may not be already super familiar with you, could you give us a quick rundown on who you are and what you do, please?
Well, I play the flute. All the flute family. And I've done a mixture of stuff, but mostly in all things jazz. But then coming out of that, I've done loads of pop things and funky things, and on the commercial side as well, behind the scenes. But my own stuff is probably a weird mishmash of everything that I've been into along the years. The straight ahead things and the funky things all mixed together. And that's what we would have done this weekend in the festival.
Exactly. Yeah, heartbreaking to not actually have you back in Manchester at the moment, but we'll make that happen as soon as we can for sure. Get you back up again. And so, how have you been finding the surreal experience of lockdown and isolation? Have you been productive? Have you been taking some time out? What's life been like?
Just after the initial shock and those first few weeks of thinking, what the hell, how are we going to adapt to this? What is the future? After that, you just kind of, I had no choice really. You just got to keep working. So I was teaching, just online teaching, and working on a few recording projects with a few people, and just keep practicing and playing every day, practicing every day, and trying to stay kind of engaged with that whole thing. And I've done more practice than I've done since my 20s, I think.
Right.
I've gone back to the woodshed. But just staying with that, but trying to be careful not to be too overly active to the point where you drive yourself nuts. Thinking you've got to spend every minute of every day being ultra productive. You can go crazy.
Yeah.
So try and give yourself time for hanging with the kids and exercise and jogging and cycling and all that stuff. Watching movies, reading. Just all the normal life stuff, but just trying to, obviously at the same time you've got to carry on and make a living. There's a lot of us that weren't eligible for the self-employed bailout, so you just have to keep going somehow.
Yeah.
Just ignore that you just keep going. Really.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad everything's holding together well and staying positive and all the rest. So, could you give us, please, a bit of a, I suppose, a whistle stop tour through early life? How did you get into the flute? How did you get into music? How did you end up going down the jazz route? And how did you find being a flautist in a world of jazz musicians who don't play the flute and all of that?
It's probably more common now, the flute, than it was when I first came in. There's more guys kind of sprouting up doing it now across all.
Because of you.
But I think there's more across, because it's such a versatile instrument. Away outside jazz, you hear it loads in every other style, every brand of world music there is, and obviously music, folk music, and everything. Every country's got its own flute legacy of some kind, except anyone that. But in jazz, there's a lot of great flute guys too. They were my first influences. Were Frank West and Joe Farrell and Roland Kirk and James Moody and not so well known guys like Paul Horn and Jeremy Steik. Maybe slightly more niche 70s figures. Me, anybody. But it was all from my dad's record collection. Really, my dad played as well. He was self-taught. And he spent all his life trying to teach himself the puzzle of harmony and teaching himself tunes. Self-taught on harmonica, played a bit of rough bluesy flute. That's how I came into the flute. There's a flute lying around the house. It's like an old romantic story. I was about 10 and I started playing just normal flute, doing my grades on flute. Started flute when I was 10, and then I was about 14 and got into jazz off my own back. But my whole childhood, I've been listening to all the stuff through my dad. There's key recordings that are just implanted. The sound of jazz is just there in my back of my brain from when I was a baby, really. Key records like what was on a lot? a Wes Montgomery album called Moving Along. And it's with James Clay on flute. That was on all the time. And then the classic Charlie Parker, Night in Tunisia, the Bird Break, and not even just the break, but just the sound of the band playing Night in Tunisia was had this kind of urban sort of terror kind of feel about it. It's really intense, kind of New York you imagine New York in the late 40s, early 50s, just from that track, the sort of mambo kind of to groove on it and everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of Cannonball, a lot of George Shearing, a lot of Toots Thielemans because he played harmonica as well. And a lot of Stevie Wonder because of the harmonica. But then bit by bit you start to branch out with your listening and discover more contemporary things that are happening at the time that you're growing up. So in the early 90s you had in this country there was Jason Rebello and Julian Joseph and Becky and Zelikou and all the Loose Tube stuff, all the Warriors stuff, Steve Williamson, Courtney Pine. It's a really healthy fertile scene in the early 90s, and that's what was around when I was coming into it. And so I played, through school, through my through those last years at school. I got really into it, playing with mates at school and having funk bands together, and playing with older mentor figures that helped me out. Helped me learn tunes with a guitarist that I did gigs with every week, and there was another guy locally called Chris Gumbley, who's a great musician. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
He does ABRSM examining now. But a phenomenal sax player and great improvising sax player and piano player and composer, and so I did loads of things with him, and he taught me as well in a jazz evening class, and a whole bunch of people. I was really lucky to have some great elder mentor figures that really helped me out. I was super generous with all their knowledge,
Yeah.
And I think the academy in '94, and I was there with a bunch of great people who were still really good friends and play and work together now. Just really lucky to be in a bunch of like-minded figures in the same year as me. So Tom Corley and the Fishwick brothers came straight from Lynn near Manchester, the Fishwicks.
Yeah.
Shan Roberts, great tenor player who lives in Prague now, and Henry Collins, trumpet player, and the surrounding years were some phenomenal musicians too, like Orlando Fleming and Sam Main and James Knight and James Scannell. There's a whole bunch of them. Every year had this incredible kind of each year had its own sort of stylistic thing a little bit, but we all influenced each other as well. So it was a really healthy time at college. And after college finished in '98, and then just stayed in London.
Yeah.
Tried to make a go of it.
Brilliant. Yeah, and so at what point did you decide? Obviously, flute's always been the thing, but not just playing, standard flute, but going, okay, alto flute, piccolo, bass flute. There's definitely not a lot of jazz piccolo and bass flute players knocking about the scene.
Yeah, and I just that naturally happened really, just piece by piece. I just kind of extended the arsenal a little bit. It was just flute for ages. Then I borrowed the alto flute from college for a long time, and I got my own one. It was actually Jay Craig, the legendary baritone player that played with Buddy Rich. And maybe the alto flute, maybe that flute played with Buddy Rich. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got his alto flute, and it had a great Mike Allen, who's a legendary head joint sort of meister, whatever the word is. He had a lip plate booster from him, which really beefed up the bottom end. So it was really kind of it was great to have this legendary Mike Allen lip plate on the alto flute. And then I got a bass flute a bit later and a piccolo a bit later, and each one's got its own personality,
Yeah.
And I try and find the right tune for the right instrument, and I'm constantly just swapping around the whole time.
Yeah.
That's probably why I don't really ever use radio mics, because I'm always swapping flutes every 2 seconds.
Oh yeah. my first ever gig having to play, but it was obviously as I'm a saxophonist, and I don't really double particularly well on anything, but especially not on flute. But the first time I ever had to, it was on bass flute on a big band gig, and to be honest, I think that was the only time I've ever sounded halfway decent on flute, because the embouchure just has to be so slack that I actually managed to muddle my way through that one. And then I picked up an actual flute, and it's just been dreadful ever since. So, bass flute was my peak.
Well, a lot of tenor players go to alto or bass flute. You see that a lot. Flute is such a sort of focused embouchure that piccolo's worse. That's even more extreme, But
yeah.
But a lot of sax players end up playing kind of their token sort of waltz or ballad on the
Yeah.
outside.
Well, that's it. I think you build up so much muscle strength around here for a very close, tight embouchure. It's really hard to relax in the right way to get a really good flute embouchure. So I
Yeah,
just decided a while ago I should just give up. And
that's it.
leave it to the people who can do it well.
Once you've got one, you can bring it to a gig. You don't even have to play it. It's just there. It's just sat there on the stage.
Yeah.
That's all that matters, really.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like to me like a good place to jump in and have a listen to the first track that you've picked out for us. And this is something a bit different and a bit special. You've done a solo version of a standard on alto flute for us. So, could you tell us a little bit about why you picked this tune and how you approached it as well?
Well, this morning, I thought I'd just try and do a few last minute recordings, especially for this, really. So, but this is just one of those tunes I always kind of. I think I always, at some point, I play it nearly every day when I'm practicing. I seem to just kind of hit on it. It's one of those tunes. Everyone's got their own little bank of tunes they always kind of fall back on, without even realizing it. You quote it all the time without realizing it.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd just play that. It's quite a nice title. It's "Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams." Maybe apt for now. It's just me on alto flute, just solo. So that's it. And nothing more to say really, apart from I was trying to do just a nice a cappella version of it. That's all.
Beautiful. Well, sit back and enjoy. Fantastic, gorgeous playing there, Gareth. So I wanted to ask you then about first album came out in 2003. Is that right? With Grooveyard,
Yeah.
and that's Put the Cat Out. Was that was your first release? Was it? So what made you pick Grooveyard as your first project? That personnel, that style. What was it that brought that about?
Yeah, I think after college, that was '98. I finished college. Yeah, it took me a few years of just kind of on what like a research sort of period where you're transcribing stuff and you're checking out tunes and I was doing tons of learning solos and learning tunes and just on a general kind of research binge, but not maybe writing tunes so much of my own for a bit.
Mm.
Maybe that's partly college. After college, you've got like such a barrage of information in your mind. You're trying to process what the hell your voice is through all that. You've got so much stuff to kind of assimilate. And it took maybe a few years to kind of just sort of find my true colours again in a way, you know. And a lot of that was going back to kind of what I came from in the first place was like the blues and the R&B and all that stuff mixed with jazz, you know. So that's why someone like John Scofield or Eddie Harris had just this incredible impact on me when I first saw John Scofield play. It was like this kind of that's it, that's the vibe, you know. Anyway, but it was meeting Alex Garnett actually. Alex on the scene had always been this like legendary figure, even back then. Even when he was much younger, he was like this sort of godfather figure of the scene, you know.
Mm.
And this is like 20 years ago. You know, this is exactly the same. So it was meeting him, really, and we had all these things in common that we were into, and we just got some blokes together, just playing all the tunes that we liked. It wasn't meant to be a project or any kind of real personal projects. We just got together and played tunes. We played Cannibal tunes and Turrentine tunes and Wes tunes and everything. We'd transcribe tunes and play them, and that's it. And then piece by piece, we both started writing tunes, and then I just got really into it. I got really stuck into having certain guys to write for. Was great, and Alex was such a brilliant collaborator. And we really enjoyed playing as a front line together. And so and that happened really naturally. You know that album was done in Colin Skinner's garage, the alto player Colin Skinner's.
Right.
He was away for those few days. We said, "Oh, you can use my garage." And then it was Chris Trave, the trombone player, recorded it on his laptop, and he mixed it at his house. And it was really as lo-fi as possible, the way that was on that album. Rough and ready, really. And I was really pleased with how it came out. And and then so me and Alex we carried on doing it for a long time, and that was going to be the band, but we're not with Alex. um, but it's ongoing. We haven't done anything for a little while, but it will pick up again. But it's been the band that'll never die.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
But you have got a second album, of course, with that band, The Strut.
yeah,
Came out almost 10 years afterwards. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
So that was a slightly different lineup with Ross on organ and
yeah.
Nick Small on drums. But Mike Outram was always the mainstay. You can't replace Mike Outram.
Fantastic. And then after the first album, then after Put the Cat Out, obviously a few years passed, but you then went and did an MA in film composition at the was it the National Film and Television School. What brought that about, and why and aside from just going and wanting to study composition, why specifically for film, and why there?
I'd always been a massive film buff all my
Hmm.
life, as much as music. Before music, really. All my earliest memories are just in the cinema, basically. Um, it's a key memory, a key experiences, really. And I'd always been into it. And then I knew I had some friends that had done the same course. There's a great piano player and general MD arranger composer figure called Simon Whiteside that did the course quite a few years before me, and he really recommended it. And there's no guarantee that you're going to work in the business afterwards, but just go in there and work with non-musicians. You're the only musicians in the whole place. There's three composers, but double everyone else. So there's six documentary directors, six fiction directors, six editors, six sound guys in the space of 1 year.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you constant back-to-back projects the whole time. So it was really a really sort of fertile period, and also working with non-musicians and having to um, explain yourself when you've got kind of jazz shorthand stuff that you naturally do on the jazz scene, which means nothing to a normal person who's trying to tell a story and your music's on their image. So why is that chord there? And you're thinking, well, it's just a cool chord, and they're saying, but it's completely demolishing what's on the screen. So you really learn kind of minimal techniques, and then the power of a particular kind of timbre or a certain sound or a certain harmonic color you're playing with, and the power of the personality of melodies, and trying to really sort of tell a story with a melody, and all the things that kind of can easily get forgotten about in the technique of just writing hip tunes or whatever. And so it really taught me of some really valuable lessons, on the narrative side, and just and the pacing side, and just being not afraid to kind of to stay with the melody, and not when it came to larger scale arranging, not to kind of smother the melody, and try and pace things naturally, and in the process of editing as well, you do a first draft, and then instead of adding stuff, you take things out.
Yeah.
uh, you maybe get more of a kind of clear narrative thing to an arrangement, or to a track, or to whatever you're doing, or to a solo. The same thing applies to improvising as well. You try and cut things out, and try and make every note count. And it's all an influence of film school, really. I
Fantastic.
think by the time I went to film school, I was probably at that point where I needed some kind of extra kind of collaborative input of some kind.
Yeah.
You can go around in circles a little bit on the scene, and you think what is happening next for me on the scene, and you just need some kind of some cattle prod of some kind, some other fresh inspiration somewhere. And that's what that was for me, really. So the musical side as well as the technological side as well, because I was an absolute complete dunce with Mac and Sibelius and Logic and all that. I was useless when I first got there. I had nothing to offer on that. So I had to learn all that stuff really quickly. I wasn't even that great with it when I finished, but it did. I had to learn in the first week. I had to learn all that stuff, which really which was great for me, because it was the thing I've been avoiding for forever. Um,
Yeah.
so also all that as well as having the confidence to sort of to run sessions in a studio, and to be sort of confident with like a large ensemble. I did a lot of like large ensemble projects when I was there, and so all those things, and it was just a great experience all around. Yeah.
Yeah, so leading on from then, after you finish your MA, you'd been running a septet for years before then, but then you recorded the first album with that. What do you see that almost as the precursor to wanting to write for a full big band, or what that was it?
Yeah, it's completely that. I mean, you've got I sort of look back on it, you've got like you've got the sort of the organ, the groovy organ side of the Grooveyard band, and then I'd always been into larger scale or through composed. I love arranging for horns. I love having the flute with horns. You know, that was the whole thing of the septet, was trying to put together a four horn group, which was kind of with that particular lineup, which often featured tenor with flute as the lead, and the brass would be backing it up, just as if it was Grooveyard with brass, you know. And then bit by bit, I do more and more kind of actual four horn kind of arranging for the four horns together. It was completely like a stepping stone to the big band. It's step by step, yeah. And a lot of the tunes for the big band were kind of tunes that I'd established for myself with the other groups. So I had tunes that I really kind of believed in, that I thought would stand up to a kind of to that large format.
Yeah.
It wasn't all kind of fresh compositions, just looking at a blank canvas and thinking, oh Jesus Christ, the gig's in 2 months' time, what am I going to do? It was pretty much tunes that I'd already kind of played in, and it was just a fun thing of just making it work for that epic lineup, you know.
Yeah. And so when did the big band first start up? When did you finally get the chance to put that all together?
It was all Paul Pace's initiation. So he gave us the first gig at the Spice of Life in 2008 in the Jazz Festival. And then I think I was chatting to him at Ray's Jazz shop. He was working at Ray's Jazz in Foyles, and we were talking about it. He said, "Well, why don't you just do a date this November?" And that was about sort of 3-4 months away. And I was like, "Oh God, cool. Try and get a whole set of new tunes done for then." I really wanted it to be kind of a whole bunch of new tunes, especially for that gig. And so that was the initial kind of burst to do that, and then it's just carried on since then. You know, in not working every week. It's not Jules Holland. We're not doing tours, you know. but just enough to keep it alive, and hopefully every gig can be an extension of the last one, and it can build and sort of grow naturally with the soloists, and the way we kind of play with the arrangements and do weird segues and weird open sections and whatever. Just try and keep it a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
You know.
And with a constant sort of cycling of personnel as well, I think you do a great job of getting a lot of younger emerging players into the band, and giving them a platform as we'll see in a second. So the first sort of band track that you've picked out for us is Stutterfunk, and this one features. So when was this recorded? Where's this take from? It's only a couple of years old or so, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from the Pizza Express last year. It's April 19.
Bernie, and this features Alex Bone amongst all the rest of the band. And Alex, of course, has a good northern link. Well, he grew up around the north anyway, didn't he? But then went to Cheetham School, and then went and won Young BBC Jazz Musician of the Year and all the rest of it, and is doing some great things. But
guys have around is like one of those kind of upbeat, positive dudes that plays great, makes a lovely sound, and he's just the most positive guy around. He's just anytime and it's people like him. Anytime he's on a gig, it's just always everyone's just relaxed, because of someone like that. I think on this track we've done some sort of pretty wild trading with the great Ryan Quigley on trumpet as well.
Great. Well, yeah, sit back and enjoy Stutterfunk. So that was Studderfunk with some burning playing from Alex and Ryan and co there. So I wanted to chat a bit to you as well. Then obviously we've been chatting through all your work as a leader, but you have an extremely extensive discography. If you if you have a look through the Gareth Lockrane website, you'll see a whole ton of stuff on there. A good few albums out with James Taylor Quartet, and there's a whole ton of stuff we don't have time to list through, but wondered if you could take us through a few of the sort of favourite sideman projects you've been a part of and what you've taken from them.
Yeah, there's been so many, and I've always had the attitude that I've always tried to just get inside the material as if it was mine, try and give it out, throw yourself into it, and there's honour in being a sideman, and you really want to kind of give it everything, if you're called to do someone else's project. So James Taylor Quartet was a big one for me because I spent so much time when I was a kid being into that music, or 70s groove things, and then the JTQ were around when I was just getting into playing, So me and some friends in my hometown up north, we used to write tunes that sounded a bit like the JTQ tunes, and we even had a band that was kind of inspired by it. So playing with that since, on and off, and there's loads of players that have dip in and out of it. It's like it's this ongoing sort of a family, just players that come in. But I've done it on and off, loads of gigs and different albums for years, for almost 20 years. And then other big ones for me have been Phil Robson's quintet, the IMS quintet, and Mark Turner was doing that, which was just an incredible experience to play next to him. And his playing is obviously kind of like legendary, a huge influence on so many people now. Between him and Chris Potter, and they're probably the two massive tenor influences of the last few years.
What was he like to just hang out and chill with around the gigs as well?
Yeah, he was lovely. He's a naturally kind of fairly quiet dude, but there's obviously a lot bubbling in there, He's obviously a really interesting guy, and the most kind of dedicated practicing musician I've ever been around. We get to the venue of a gig, and the metronome will be out within seconds, and the tenor will be out within seconds, and he's playing groupings against the metronome, and just immediately playing etude phrases and trying to work out voice leading shapes with standards, and within minutes he's right in. He's gone all in right from where he left off a few hours before at the hotel. So it's really instructive. Watching that kind of dedicated process in action was just incredible. There's no small talk with him. He was just in it all the time. Just really inspiring, and him and Howard, and to have a player that kind of iconic on the contemporary world scene, but be so kind of giving as a player in a group context. He was a real generous player. He somehow develops a band sound with his playing, which often doesn't quite happen. You get great players, but they're playing in a box and the band are there. But he has such a full-bodied melodic kind of sound that kind of just generated the evolution of a band sound through a tune somehow.
Amazing.
It's massive to play with, great. And Phil Robson, his tunes, and his playing. Phil's like a hero of the scene, and same goes for Christine Tobin as well. So playing a lot with Christine Tobin in the last few years, as well as with Phil. And then there's a whole bunch, and a really massive one for me has been, I mentioned Becky Mzeliku before, who was around in the early 90s when I was just getting into it, and then he after he had a run of records in the 90s with on Verve, big all-star American albums, he went back to South Africa and then came back to London about 2004 or 5, before he died in 2008. So during that period I got to meet him, because I'd always known his tunes. Really, I learned a lot of his tunes at the piano when I was a kid, and so later on I got to meet him, and I met him a long time before I played with him. I met him at a jazz club somewhere in town, at the long gone Shino's club. It's on the South Bank. It was on the South Bank where the London Eye is now. There was a great club called Shino's which had kind of like 3 or 4 gigs a day. So I met Becky there. But I got a call one morning. I had my weekly Perry job in Putney, and I got a call. It was raining. I was on the Holloway Road, raining in my white shirt for teaching. I got a call that morning saying Becky wants to play, like now. And we've got a rehearsal space with a grand piano. Can you make it now? And so I did like the gravelly kind of a sick voice phone call to the school I was meant to be teaching at. I said, sorry, I woke up this morning and but the rain's coming down, I can hear traffic, everything. I just couldn't hide it. It was completely fake. But, come over me, I can't quite, oh no. And then so I went straight to this orchestral rehearsal space with a grand piano in Borough. And played with Becky for all day there. And Becky, we did tunes of his that I knew from the records. He taught me some new tunes. Everything by ear. He didn't read, so it was completely just memory and ears all the way. And we played together for the next kind of 2 or 3 years, doing lots of a whole like duo gigs and quartet gigs and quintet gigs. And we even did like a duo recording that was never intended to come out, but it's sort of a kind of document of all his new tunes. But maybe we could clean it up at some point and see if it's worthy to get out there or not. But it's a massively inspiring experience playing with him. Just his, he's the closest I've ever been to a kind of like a sort of walking the tightrope kind of genius figure. You know, he's a very up and down figure. But when he was in good form, just played like an angel. You know, just stretch out, and the rhythmic drive in his playing and his memory for tunes. It was just. We do his own set. We do the set list for him before the gig. We just give him the list. It's on the side of the piano, and he would segue the entire set for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. And if he's having a really good night, he'd finish off the gig with giant steps, and we'd always do giant steps at the end of the gig. and then that would be another 20 minutes on that, you know. But can really stretch, and his ears were just pinpoint ears, incredible. I used to always try and memorize his tunes. Because I always needed to know the tunes really well, because it was always down to me to be a kind of like middleman between him and the rest of the band. So they'd have the part that I'd written out for the tunes, and Becky might go off and loop a section or change key somewhere or whatever. You know, I'd have to kind of know the tune so I could tell the other guys what was going on. So it was a real lesson to me to go back to the old school way of just internalizing tunes and memorizing material and just trusting your memory and your ears to get you through it.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible how much you can internalize if you have to, you know. So yeah, and if I'd learn his tunes, and I used to practice his tunes at film school. When I was at film school, I spent every night staying late and practice Becky's tunes. I stayed up really late and just practicing Becky's crazy tunes. And so if I ever did any kind of harmonic thing I've been working on his tunes, you'd go, yeah, brother, and he'd hear it straight away. And the next chorus, he'd be doing that same stuff I was doing, and he'd extend it more, and it was just this constant like dialogue, just within the quartet vibe of the partnership. You know, it was a real lovely partnership, and it was really miss him. Yeah,
incredible. Yeah. And so, did you record together during that period?
Only that duo recording never came out. It was never intended to be like an album, but maybe it could be. I mean, I heard it again a little while ago, and it actually sounds cool. You know, we did about 30 tunes in one day, duo tunes of his unrecorded duo tunes, all his new compositions. It's great tunes that no one's ever played, and I'd love to do something with those tunes or with that recording at some point.
Amazing.
But since he's died, he's become a hero figure to so many of the next generation of players in South Africa, and then also in the States and over here. And Winston Marsalis is really sort of has really jumped on the South African influence in jazz recently, and cited Becky.
Fantastic. Well, amazing. Well, on another sideman project that you've been part of that actually managed to bring you up to the Whiskey Jar for your one visit so far has been working with Miguel Garodi in his Mad Nonette. How did you enjoy being part of all of that? It was a great tour and great music.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's great. I'm really real honoured to be part of it. Yeah, and it's with guys who I really consider to be the state of the art players of. I'm like the old guy in that band. I'm like Uncle Gareth. Well, it's just, I mean, all those guys, you know, Dave Hamblett, George Crowley, Mike Schilling with Miguel, Kieran, Ralph Wild, Connor, Ray on trumpet. It's just astonishing musicians, you know. And I mean, and Chillingworth and Crowley are it's just insanity, you know.
That was definitely one of the favourite gigs that we've had on at the at the Whiskey Jar so far was really really something special, that gig. And Steve Berry came down to watch that night, didn't he?
Yeah, with his family.
Yeah,
Um,
fantastic.
but
And
yeah,
then
that band really opened up my ears to a few things actually that I had that it really kind of Miguel's like I think a long gestating compositional process that ended up with those tunes and so some of the rhythmic things and then the use of the upper intervals in the chords, the sharp those danger zones of the sharp 15 and the sharp 19, sharp 23 and the god. But a couple of Lydian partials that Jacob Collier has made popular since,
yeah.
but to hear them as part of the compositions, and I was often playing the G sharp on a G major chord and thinking, gee, this beautifully works in this bizarre way. But that band did open up my ears to a lot of things actually.
I mean, you have to really trust your own ears and technique to be able to sit right up there, loftily high, and pitch a semitone above where you.
How do you pitch a high G sharp anyway? But yeah, I love doing that band. It's great, and making the album was really fun as well. It's a good 2 or 3 days in Wood Green. Studio called in Wood Green. There's some great studio in Wood Green.
Yeah, and Miguel's band's definitely one we'd love to get back. I know it's obviously a 9-piece is hard to get on the road without something extra behind it. But yeah, hopefully we'll definitely manage that again at some point as well. And then the other project that I wanted to ask you a bit about, which is a project that you co-lead, but with Neil Lynn and Ross Stanley, is the Banau trio, which has been long running. You said a bit less active at the moment. I think you were telling me.
Nothing for a few years actually.
Nothing for a few years, yeah.
But bands never die. They can it's still a thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll book you at the Whiskey Jar, and then that's the excuse to get it back on the road again. But that's a very different stylistic venture to all of your other projects, which maybe broadly fit under a bit of an umbrella of sound worlds. But that's a totally different thing compared to those. So how did that all come about? And do you find yourself having to approach it with a different mindset in any way?
No, not really a different mindset. It's more just trying to blend with what's going on around you. Really, that's always been the main driving thing. Trying to have a flexible sound that can, or flexible kind of approach that can fit in with different settings. I love playing with all kinds of players and bands, and just trying to. It always feels like I always try and make it feel like I'm just honestly playing within what's going on.
But it almost feels like more like an expected tonal timbral home for the flute, just piano and voice feels like you're almost going back to classical roots with the flute.
That's definitely part of it. And the whole thing started by doing a cruise ship gig together.
Oh really?
In 2005. It was spring 2005, I think. And it was, and we were there for 2 or 3 weeks. And just doing kind of, I think we were doing about 4 or 5 cultural. We weren't the guys playing in the bar every night. We were kind of there to be. We were the high culture, kind of, a special night out on the boat kind of thing. So we spent the whole time just eating and drinking and rehearsing. And that's it. There was sunbathing, eating, drinking, rehearsing, and then we had about 4 or 5 performances within this massive cruise ship gig. So we spent all that time rehearsing in the cinema that was in the boat. When there wasn't a film on, we could rehearse. There was a piano, not quite piano down there, so we just go and rehearse down there.
Right.
But me and Nia had been friends for a long time, and then I think that was probably the first time that me and Ross had really worked together a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And Ross had just come out of college around that time. I think 2005. Maybe he just finished Guildhall, maybe, and I was like a veteran of the scene by then. So it's more of a personally bonding experience, more than a kind of like an ultra serious workshop intensive rehearsal process. We drank a lot of cocktails on that. I think none of us made a penny on the gig, but it was more kind of like just a bonding experience. We just became like sort of best mates, all of us, and Nia, it's primarily Nia's tunes that kind of evolved through us kind of. She'd bring tunes along to the rehearsals, and then we'd make constant suggestions and change everything.
Great.
And it's just the process of. I mean, I just love working with singers anyway. But Nia is just one of the best anyway. I love playing with Nia, and she's got this phenomenal command of her instrument and just expressive sound and interpretive things with her lyrics are incredible. The poetry settings and her inspirations go across so many spheres of the arts, And then I love the storytelling sort of sound of her compositions, and she always has unusual ideas about form and different stylistic things that are done within one tune, and sudden stylistic about turns that happen within a tune. And she likes things to be not too precious as well. She likes things to try things out and go for it, and we'd have certain things we try and do, but then within that, it's pretty open at the same time.
Yeah.
I used to really enjoy it, and playing with Ross in that exposed setting was always because he's another guy who's got kind of just like terrifying ears, just.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's just incredible,
Yeah.
You play a flurry of notes, and he's got a voicing. Just that was a millisecond of he just, I think he probably has to stop himself from harmonizing everything, It's just unbelievable, and also beyond just having the rapid fire ear thing, he's got this otherworldly blending musicianship that can just fit in with anybody, and enhance any situation, but bring his own thing, but enhance any kind of environment, whether it's a burning organ quartet or kind of playing, just piano in anyone's band, or soul things, or more of a. I think that band, that trio, kind of really got into his initial inspirations, which were hugely John Taylor on piano.
Mm.
I think John Taylor was a big influence for Ross at college.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's in because we've had Ross up at the Whiskey Jar a few times. I think the first time was with Ed Jones's quartet, where he's obviously burning sort of like maybe Late Coltrane sort of vibe for a lot of that, and then pulling out the McCoy chops. But then the last time he was up was with a Norwegian guitarist, Eirik Svela, and he brought the Hammond with him on the road, so we got to see the beast in action. And so it sounds like a completely different musician when he's digging into all of that. But ferociously versatile.
Yeah. I think the organ thing for him is like well, he originally was like an organ scholar at school.
Right. School.
Yeah. Like messing around and all that kind of stuff. So how he uses the instrument and how he uses the settings and the swells and all the different sort of orchestral tonal sort of colours in there. He's got this unbelievable command of that. Yeah. But he's a special musician. Yeah, he really is. I think everyone. I think obviously he's one of the most in-demand guys anywhere. But there's a reason for that. He's a lovely guy, and he's got this effortless kind of sponge-like ability just to kind of soak up the essence of whatever's going on around him and do his thing with it. It's like, when I was doing the big band album, this is really singing Ross's praises.
He paid us both handsomely at the start of the podcast. That's it.
I can't sort of praise him highly enough, really. But when I was making the big band album, just mixing the whole thing, there's this constant sort of magic comping moments that are coming out on piano and organ, just adding these little ingredients just to the tracks. When you isolate the organ or the piano in the mix, he's constantly sort of doing things that are reactive and playing within the compositions, and so he's a special dude, definitely.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's delve back into having a listen to some music, I think. And one of the other tracks you picked out for us is Roots. So there's another one with the big band, but this time featuring a bit of Nadim Tamorai having a good blow. Who's a ferocious player. I met Nadim years ago when I was studying classical saxophone. I got a call to do a last minute Nijo dep in Chester. And went across having, never studied jazz at all, and just had, been playing for a bit of fun, went over and then had to sit next to Nadeem and so go toe to toe and do a bit of blowing. It was absolutely terrifying. But he's the loveliest fella on the planet, and
he's another guy. He's got that kind of that ability to just enhance any situation. If he's just on a gig, he's just one of those feel good characters. He's just a great kind of guy to have around, and his solos always take sort of these bizarre kind of goes down these weird paths in his solos. He takes some huge kind of risks in his solos. I love it. He just goes on these bizarre sort of tangents. There's always like a moment in any gig. It's like, where's he going? It's not the
I absolutely love his playing, and he's hidden away in Doncaster, isn't he? Which isn't maybe where you think of as being like the happening hub of jazz in the UK so much. It's got a great youth jazz scene, Doncaster. Has done for years. Turned out a lot of great musicians, but yeah. So if you ever get the chance to go and catch Nadeem and you live out Doncaster way, you're in for a treat. So anything about Roots you'd like to tell us all before we have a listen?
Well, it's massively coming out of the Schofield influence. John Schofield has been a huge influence on me with writing and learning his tunes, and just how he plays with the blues and R&B side against some more contemporary elements in there as well. So this is really coming out of my obsessions from the 90s. It's there's two albums, Hand Jive and Groove Elation, which just I've never got bored of those albums. Every week I listen to those records at some point, and there's always some new little twist in there that I always hear, So it's massively, it's unashamedly coming out of that,
Fantastic. Well, yeah, fantastic. Sit back and enjoy Roots. Fantastic. So that was the very incredible Nadim Tamori and Roots and the Gareth Lockrane Big Band, absolutely burning. So as well as being a very busy and in-demand performer, you also work heavily with education, and you hold a position at the Royal Academy, extensive teaching there, and all around. You also are the course director for the Junior Royal Academy Jazz Department, which has been going from strength to strength over the years, and is churning out a phenomenal and terrifying array of jazz musicians as time goes on. So how did it come about, you becoming the course director, and did you take over from someone, or was that the founding of the Junior Jazz Department?
No, Nick Smart set it up in 2000,
Okay.
before he took over the senior course.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Nick completely put it together from the beginning. I think it might have been one band to start with. And I think the very first year was with I think it was Freddie Gavita, Kit Downs, Josh Blackmore, and some other band. Maybe George Crowley was there at the very beginning. I'm not sure. But they that was the very first year he did it. And when he decided to apply for the senior, to take over the senior course, I applied for the junior course. So there's a whole bunch of us went in for the interview process and all that. But it's been great. I took over in 2011. Massively inspiring. Kids that age, they're just getting into it. It's just there's nothing quite like it, because quite a few of them come through the Purcell School or the Warriors. They've had a bit of a taste of playing with guys their age, but for the most part, it's the first time they've been with a whole band of players that are kind of, everyone is equally kind of committed and into it and soaking things up, and how the kids influence each other with what they're into. We do a transcription project every year, and this colossal variety of stuff coming out in those transcription days. We'll get Oscar Peterson, Brecker, Bill Evans, Curtis Fuller, Freddie, John McLaughlin. It's like, and the whole thing just collides. And it's really cool, because they'll all discover things that they would never have discovered, and then they'll get writing, and when we bring in guests every year to do projects, so each year kind of takes its own shape with the visiting guests or visiting groups that come in to do sessions, or the guests that do gigs with the kids. So for me, it's been like a shameless way to kind of just to get all my heroes in there as well.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did, I brought in Jason Ribello, and I brought in Pete King, and I brought in Stan Saltzman, and Julian Aguilis, and Julian Siegel, and Ian Bellamy, and all my heroes of the scene. They were the first guys I brought in on my first few years. And
amazing.
We sort of their tunes with the kids, and it was really inspiring for everybody. And it's just carried on.
Yeah.
And quite a few American guys have been in the last few years too. So the great Dick Oates came in the autumn, which was just amazing. He's one of my heroes, one of my favourite ever players of the last 30, 40 years. Chris Cheek came in a few years ago, so it's great. And Dave Lehman came in as well.
Yeah.
On my birthday, he signed a record of mine for my birthday. and just the kids that have been through the course, loads of them are now kind of big pros on the scene now. It's great. It's great. Sort of having that relationship from when they're 14, 15, and then you're kind of mates years later that it's on the team, So James Copus and Tom Walsh was in there before I took over, but Tom Walsh was in there, and since I've been there, there's been Tom Barford and Tom Smith and Jacob Collier, of course. He's done all right for himself, and a whole bunch of them. It's just this massive.
I know that, because obviously, for people watching who may not know, I'm doing a Masters at the Royal Academy at the moment, and we go in on Monday morning, for rep and improv, and there's all the scribblings on the board from the Saturday at the junior department. I just go in each week and go, really wish someone had been doing all this with me when I was a teenager. Life would be so much easier now. Yeah, it's a really, really fantastic thing you got.
On the whiteboard, there's always some new kind of things to write down, new exercise, or new kind of thing to check out, a record or a certain player to check out. It's nice for me as well, because you constantly have to kind of not only kind of rethink your own enthusiasms. You have to kind of reword it to keep it fresh. You can't just churn out the same thing all the time. Although probably a bit. He doesn't. But you constantly have to kind of rethink your own influences, and then also you get into what they're into too. You know, so everything so it goes in there too. You know, so it's one. I mean, for me at this point, teaching and playing, it's always one big process of endless kind of research and practice and checking things out, and it's just all tied in with each other now. By this point, I was probably a reluctant teacher in my 20s, like anybody else, like most people are. You know, but I've learned to accept it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. You know, my dad was a teacher, so he was probably a reluctant teacher when he started as well. You know, but he had a lot of he had loads of people that he helped get started in the creative arts, and he was an illustration tutor. You know, so when I was a kid, there were constant ex-students of his coming around to the house and kind of coming. And I was used to that environment of the teaching and giving environment. So it felt like a natural thing to do. But by the time I kind of did the junior course, you know, and then that naturally led to doing more and more teaching in all the senior courses, so Guildhall and the Academy and Trinity as well.
Yeah.
And all those courses are dominated by guys that have been through the junior course. So you see them all coming up through college and beyond. So it's a really nice way of staying in touch with everybody that I've seen from when they were school kids. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we're all very grateful to you for helping along the next generation and putting us all, the rest of us, out of jobs.
Great.
Yeah. So, listen, the last tune that you've picked out for us is a very hot off the press affair. You can do the intro for us, please.
Yeah. It's not a brand new tune, but it hasn't ever been played anywhere. But I've had a whole bunch of tunes on the boil for a potential new project at some point. There'll be another big band album. I think I'm going to try and use this period to try and plan a new big band record. I think I might try and do a sequel to the Fist Fight at the Barn Dance album, and I might arrange up this tune for that project, I reckon. It's like I'm always trying to write kind of the next tasty waltz, and this is my new tasty waltz.
Fantastic.
And it's titled. What's it called again?
Is it the Last Sunrise?
Is it Last or Lost?
No, I don't know.
I think Last Sunrise.
Last Sunrise.
Just Last Sunrise, that's it.
Last Sunrise.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, enjoy Last Sunrise. Beautiful. So that was lost. Did we say lost or last? Last, yeah. Great. So that was Last Sunrise. Some beautiful bass flute playing again there. Absolutely fantastic. So, what does the future hold for you then? Obviously, you said at the moment you're looking to write a new big band album.
Yeah, it'll be a mixture of. I mean, like the other one that we did.
Mhm.
It'll be a mixture of brand new things written especially for the session, and then kind of gigged in tunes that we haven't done definitive recorded versions of yet. So with that comes a bit of you have to rethink the oldies a little bit, try and make them sort of craft them for an album, and try and maybe cut down the length a little bit. They can't all be 15-minute tunes. But try and condense things a little bit, but just try and. It takes a long time to plan one of these things. It's like being a sort of army general, So that and then, but I've got enough new tunes to kind of to plan hopefully do a new small group album of some kind at the same time.
Fantastic. Will that be with Grooveyard or a new lineup? Yeah.
I think I'd love to do it with Alex again.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he starts to get older. But in this lockdown time, it's just trying to keep yourself sane really, and not like I said before, don't kind of don't sort of overdo the activity. You can drive yourself nuts trying to be overly active and overly creative and on all cylinders all the time. You drive yourself mad. But just trying to for the next however long this period is, just try and I'm just enjoying going back to kind of doing. I've always practiced a lot, but I've been in a bit of a daily routine these last few months, which has been great for me. So practicing and just trying to all this stuff of online teaching, online recording, filming yourself. This is stuff I never did before.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't film yourself doing it, it didn't happen. So all these skills that the young dudes have had together for years, I'm just getting together. So it's been a learning curve, definitely. And looking ahead, just try and be available. My phone's on,
Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks for your time, Gareth. As we come to wrap up, then, as I'm asking everyone, what are your top tips for the audience for what they can do with their time in lockdown? Anything worth checking out? What's been in your head?
Don't take me as an example. I mean, my natural thing. Just left to my own devices, I go back to really shaky 80s comedies, like kind of just these movies. Left to my own devices, I go back to early 80s comedies. I seem to just get an endless buzz out of it.
Brilliant.
70s thrillers, early 80s shaky comedies, as far as movies go. But I have subscribed to Mubi, which is a fantastic film channel with especially curated series of films every month. A new film appears every month. So there's only 30 films at any one time on this channel. It's fantastic.
Yeah, are they more like art movies then, or are they mainstream? Or
A lot of foreign movies,
mm-hmm.
or kind of maybe slightly niche films from the 70s by directors that get overlooked from the 70s, maybe. But a new film every day appears on there, so that's a fantastic subscription channel, it's got a fraction of the stuff that you get on Netflix, but it's all really good. And so that's been great. And then also there's a podcast that I found, the jazz podcast. Is it called the jazz? No, sorry, that's the other one.
That's Rob Cope's one. Yeah.
Sorry.
You should check out that as well. You've got an interview with Rob as well, haven't you? Available.
I did one, yeah. But what's it called? Wait, the jazz session. And it's with this guy Jason Crane, and he's like really informed. He knows the subjects of the interview like ridiculously well, and he knows all the recordings. He knows their whole kind of process, and he asks them great questions. And so I've learned loads about some newer things coming out of there from the sort of current New York scene and LA or New York, and that's been great to check that out.
Brilliant.
And beyond that, just kind of. Hanging with my kids, mucking around, just trying to take care of family and, trying to live healthy, exercise, eat well. The old glass of wine and beer is all right. But don't take me as an example because I'm I just kind of I spend hours and hours just doing music stuff on my own in a room, so it's not that helpful.
Well, Gareth, thank you so much again for taking the time out to join us. It's been a massive pleasure. And yeah, good luck for the future, and we'll hope to have you back up with the whiskey jar as soon as possible. Can't wait for it. Keep well, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye. Hello again, Inky Jazz fans. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in today and listen to the podcast with Gareth. A huge thanks to Gareth for taking the time out to talk to us. It was such a pleasure to have him on the podcast and share all his great music. Please go and check out his music online. Please consider buying some albums if the music has appealed to you. Please head over to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/NQJazz, to check out all of our concerts, our films, and the rest of our podcast series over there. Thanks so much, and we will see you very soon. Take it easy. Bye bye.